In the 1960s, an unassuming Chicago bellhop named Ted Serios captivated the world with an extraordinary claim. He insisted that he could produce images, blurry but recognizable pictures of places and objects, simply by concentrating his thoughts. These thoughtographs, as they came to be known, materialized on Polaroid film, seemingly bypassing the need for cameras, negatives, or darkrooms. Over the years, the story of Ted Serios has become a case study in the tension between belief and skepticism, art and trickery, mind and machine. To this day, Serios' work endures. Was he a gifted psychic, channeling the subconscious into physical form? Or was he simply a clever magician, exploiting the limitations of Polaroid cameras and the human desire to believe? This is Ted Serios and the haunting mystery of thoughtography. Ted Serios was not the kind of man you would expect to lead scientific experiments into the paranormal. A diminutive figure with a penchant for whiskey, Serios had spent much of his life working odd jobs, most notably as a bellhop in downtown Chicago. His life might have remained a footnote in the city's streets had he not met Dr. Jule Eisenbud, a Denver-based psychiatrist with a deep interest in parapsychology. Eisenbud first encountered Serios through an acquaintance who claimed the bellhop could project images onto Polaroid film with nothing more than the power of his mind. Intrigued but cautious, Eisenbud arranged a meeting. What he witnessed was unlike anything he had seen before. In a dimly lit room, Serios stared intensely at a Polaroid camera, his face contorted in concentration. After a click and the familiar whir of the film ejecting, the photograph developed and revealed an image of a building Eisenbud recognized, the Chicago Water Tower. The implications were staggering. Eisenbud wasn't easily fooled. He knew the building was a common landmark in Chicago, but the photograph was unusual, showing the tower at an odd angle with strange distortions, nothing like a conventional tourist snapshot. Over the next several years, Eisenbud would dedicate himself to understanding Serios' thoughtographs, believing that they represented genuine psychic phenomena. Serios' thoughtography sessions became elaborate affairs. In a typical experiment, Serios would sit in front of a Polaroid camera, often holding a small black tube he called a gizmo to the lens. He claimed the gizmo helped him focus his energy, though he could sometimes produce thoughtographs without it. Serios was rarely sober during these sessions, insisting that alcohol helped amplify his abilities. With Eisenbud carefully watching over the experiments, Serios would narrow his eyes, lean toward the camera, and will the image into existence. The photographs were unsettling. Some were blurry, filled with shadows and strange patterns, while others contained partial images of recognizable landmarks, buildings Serios allegedly had never visited. One thoughtograph showed a medieval castle that looked remarkably similar to a structure in Germany. Another seemed to depict a spacecraft, though the image was hazy, as if seen through mist. For Eisenbud, these photographs were evidence of something profound, a glimpse into the untapped power of the human mind. He meticulously documented each session, cataloging hundreds of thoughtographs. In 1967, he published his findings in a book titled The World of Ted Serios. The book was part scientific study, part philosophical meditation, and part love letter to the mysteries of human consciousness. Eisenbud believed that Serios' work pointed to a hidden dimension of reality, where thought and matter were intertwined. One of the most compelling moments in the Ted Serios saga unfolded on a quiet day at Dr. Jule Eisenbud's ranch. Hoping to distance their experiments from the distractions of urban life, Eisenbud invited Serios to the secluded property for a thoughtographic session. In the quiet countryside, Serios settled into his usual process, staring into the lens, brow furrowed in concentration. Moments later, the Polaroid camera clicked, and as the film developed, it revealed a scene that left Eisenbud astounded. The photograph showed a familiar place, Eisenbud's ranch, where the two men were staying. But something about the image was off. The barn depicted in the photograph was not as it currently stood. Instead, it reflected a detail from the past, a large open space in the lower portion of the barn door. Eisenbud knew this version of the barn well. Years ago, the upper part of the door had been removed, leaving the lower half wide open. But by the time Serios visited the ranch, the barn had undergone significant renovations. The gap was filled in with new doors, and the barn had looked that way for years. What made the photograph so strange was that Serios had no way of knowing the barn's history. He never visited the ranch before that day, and Eisenbud had not mentioned the old barn door in their conversations. Yet there it was, in ghostly black and white, a glimpse of the ranch as it once had been, somehow captured by Serios' mind. The strange image from the ranch added fuel to the debate about Serios' abilities. Believers saw it as proof that Serios was tapping into something extraordinary, a form of retrocognition or perhaps a psychic connection to the history of the place. If his thoughtographs could conjure images from the past, what other unknown powers might his mind contain? Not everyone was convinced by Serios' thoughtographs. The scientific community greeted Eisenbud's findings with skepticism, and magicians in particular were quick to question the legitimacy of the experiments. Polaroid cameras, they pointed out, were far from foolproof. It was possible to manipulate the film or hide tiny images inside the camera, especially with a device like Serios' gizmo providing convenient cover. James Randi, a professional magician and noted skeptic, became one of Serios' most vocal critics. Randi demonstrated that with practice, anyone could produce similar images using sleight of hand and a little misdirection. He argued that Serios' sessions were a performance, not a paranormal event. The fact that Serios often refused to cooperate with outside investigators, preferring to work only with Eisenbud, added to the suspicion. Yet Eisenbud remained steadfast. He conducted experiments under increasingly strict conditions, at times removing Serios' gizmo and ensuring the Polaroid film was untouched before each session. And still, the thoughtographs came. For every claim of fraud, Eisenbud could point to a photograph that defied easy explanation. He acknowledged the possibility of trickery, but argued that even if Serios had occasionally faked a thoughtograph, the sheer volume and variety of the images suggested that something extraordinary was happening. Over time, the debate around Ted Serios' thoughtographs shifted from questions of fraud to questions of meaning. If Serios was a fraud, he was an exceptionally talented one, capable of fooling trained observers for years. If he was genuine, his work represented a breakthrough in our understanding of the human mind. But what if the truth lay somewhere in between? Some scholars and art critics have suggested that Serios' thoughtographs occupy a liminal space between performance art and psychic phenomena. They argue that whether or not the images were real, Serios was tapping into something deeply human, a desire to believe in the impossible, a longing for proof that the mind is more powerful than we imagine. In this view, Serios was less a psychic and more a performance artist, using photography as his medium and belief as his canvas. Others have drawn comparisons between Serios' work and the spirit photography of the 19th century, in which photographers claimed to capture images of ghosts and other supernatural entities. Like those early spirit photographers, Serios' thoughtographs are steeped in ambiguity, blurring the line between reality and illusion. Today, Ted Serios is a largely forgotten figure, his story related to the fringes of paranormal history. Yet his thoughtographs continue to intrigue those with a taste for the strange and unexplained. They raise unsettling questions about the nature of photography and the reliability of perception. Can a photograph truly capture a moment in time, or is every image shaped by the mind of the viewer? If thoughtography is possible, what does that say about the limits of human consciousness? Despite decades of skepticism, no definitive proof of fraud has ever been established. Eisenbud's collection of thoughtographs remains intact, housed in archives that attract the occasional researcher or curiosity seeker. And though Serios himself faded into obscurity, his story endures as a reminder of the strange possibilities that lie just beyond the edge of understanding. In the end, the mystery of Ted Serios is not just a story about photographs or psychic powers. It's a story about belief, about the thin line between what we know and what we want to believe, about the power of the human mind to create meaning in the face of the unknown. Whether Serios was a genuine psychic or a clever charlatan may never be known, but perhaps that's besides the point. In the blurry, dreamlike images of his thoughtographs, Serios captured something more elusive than a building or a landscape. He captured the mystery of human consciousness itself, a mystery that, like his photographs, remained tantalizingly out of focus.